Ready?
Ready.
Cathy, I love doing this with you.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, I'd like to welcome you all to the official debut of On Point, the Adelman Effect, a special edition podcast series to honor our head of primary school, Cathy Adelman's remarkable contributions in her 46 years and counting at Viewpoint School. And to talk about how we're addressing a pressing need at Viewpoint with the first ever endowment to support financial aid for our youngest students in Cathy's name. Cathy and I are here with our very first podcast guest, a very special guest, Jackie Schaffer, a proud Viewpoint alum and the current parent of Arwen in 5th grade. Thank you, Jackie, for being a part of the very first episode of this very special podcast.
I am so honored. Thank you so much for having me.
So today we're talking about what inspired us to create the Cathy Adelman Endowment Fund for financial aid in the first place, what it means for our youngest learners, and why all proceeds from this year's 40th annual benefit will help seed it, which we're all really excited about. We'll also walk down Viewpoint memory lane and reflect on a loving bond that was formed between a kindergarten teacher and her student in the early 1980s.
Yes.
So
Can you say 90s instead?
Yeah, I kind of didn't want to say that out loud, actually.
I have no shame. I am very honored that whatever year it was, and we need to go back and pinpoint it because when people ask me, I'd like to have the specifics right, that I am one of the roughly 15 children who were honored to be in both Cathy Adelman's kindergarten class and her 1st grade. So I'm one of the only group of children who were able to have Cathy for 2 years in a row in primary school as a teacher.
2 years of the Adelman Effect.
2 years. At such a formative age. It's just I think that group of us are very uniquely blessed.
What persists with you from your time as a kindergartner and 1st grader with Mrs. Adelman?
Oh, so much. There are so many things. I was thinking today in advance of our conversation about going back to my very first interactions with Mrs. Adelman. And I think if you go into a Claire's or an Oz in a mall, they talk about everything you ever needed to know you learned in kindergarten.
That's right.
And so I think that holds true, especially if you learned it in kindergarten from Cathy Adelman. So I think from those 2 very formative years, really, people talk about the foundation of an education and the foundation of character. And I think it's wonderful that so many people matriculate at a school like Viewpoint all throughout, from now TK all the way up through, I'm sure you have 11th graders that join you. I think there's something very special when you're really blessed to have that foundation at the very, very beginning, when you're learning how, to me, what I always say to my children and people that I know in business is one of the most important things is learning how to make friends and keep friends. I think that's a really valuable lesson that you learn in those early years. I remember very distinctly about how we were encouraged to treat one another in the classroom, being modeled by Cathy Adelman. It's pretty extraordinary when you think about that. Your first experience of that was led by Cathy. And another thing I was thinking today about lessons and experiences that I've carried with me. I mean, I remember, the alma mater, learning it in Cathy's classroom. I mean, I have distinct, very specific memories. I also have some memories about throwing my jacket up in the trees because I'm probably, now decades of children who don't love the assembly uniform, and then you get to become like I am, a parent now, and it's the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life, and you love the structure and you love the tradition. But at the time, Sue Mills were not your favorite words to hear. The sweater's a little itchy, the jacket's uncomfortable, and I had a pretty decent arm, and there were some really nice trees around Blaney Patio, and I would take my sweater and my jacket and throw it very high, and I don't know who it was that had to go retrieve it. I know that I wasn't allowed because I tried. But I definitely, the fact that Cathy has stayed in the primary school for 46 years after teaching me, I think is a real, I've sidestepped everyone because I could have ruined the best gift that we could possibly give Viewpoint is Cathy could have just given up. And then another thing I remember from those very early couple of years is, I remember Peter Rabbit very distinctly, and I remember the performances in Blaney Patio. And I think my love of storytelling and my love of performance in my work probably comes from those early years. And I think when you start at Viewpoint and the public speaking and the assemblies and the performances, you really love that creative portion. And also, I'm not a terrified public speaker. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I'm always willing when someone says, "Can you take on this responsibility?" And I think it comes from starting in kindergarten, being asked to line up and walk to that microphone on Blaney Patio and say your lines or welcome people for Grandparents' Day or the other traditions that I remember way back when. So those are some of the things I remember very uniquely about those traditions. And then just imagine all of those wonderful traditions being sort of presented and couched in the love and patience and delight and creativity of Cathy Adelman. It's pretty amazing. So very special.
I always think about kindergarten as being so foundational in terms of social skills. As you're saying, you learn how to be in school, also academic building blocks, but so much about social skills. And then first grade is so much about academic building blocks and social skills.
I remember, Cathy, when we brought our daughter here, you always say, we teach people how to be a student. And student doesn't just mean the academics, it also means how we treat people, how we behave in a group, how we are part of the larger community in a K through 12 school. It's pretty incredible. It's very sweet. I love looking at Cathy and as we have this conversation.
Isn't it great to be here, actually? I don't know what it would be like for me to be with my kindergarten teacher.
Oh, it's wild. Cathy, let's be honest. You remember some of my greater transgressions as a kindergartner and first grade student.
Well, I think about all the positive things that I would say about you. You were inquisitive. You had a mind of your own. I would agree with that. But so smart at such an early age, so eager to participate in activities, beautiful. She was just an adorable child.
Had a great set of pigtails with it, always good
did.
bows. My mother made sure I had great bows.
She did. I was thinking pigtails.
Pigtails and bows.
Yeah.
I actually met Jackie when she was 3 years old because her mother was teaching at the same time I was. She was teaching fifth grade English. And so I got to know, and her mother, Marcia, is still one of my very best friends, dearest friends. But our families were really connected. So at the beginning of all of that was having Jackie in the classroom and, getting to be part of the family connection as well, which is something that does happen at Viewpoint. I just have to veer off a little bit that it is one of those very, very special communities that people are like-minded. They have the same hopes and dreams for their children, and as a result, you become close friends with many, many people who are the parents of the children that your children are going to school with. And so
Even the ones you work with who have to come in for conferences when your child throws their assembly uniform in the trees.
So,
right.
Cathy knew you, Jackie, and you knew Mrs. Adelman as
Miss
your
McNally.
mom's colleague, as
Yes.
Miss McNally.
Miss McNally, my teacher.
Before you were even a student at the school.
Yes, I was 4 years old when I came to Viewpoint as a kindergartner. I turned 5 that October. So I knew Miss McNally, now Mrs. Adelman, prior to that, and then was her student the first year for kindergarten, and then again in first grade.
And then you've known her ever since.
Ever since.
As
No break.
Again, as a child of her colleague, and then as a Viewpoint parent.
Yes, as a
And
Viewpoint parent also.
and now as someone, you and Jeff really helped lead the opening of this Cathy Adelman Endowment Fund for Financial Aid. Um, what's the journey since kindergarten been like with Cathy?
Well, it's pretty extraordinary because there's been no break in our contact. There's no, oh, did you see her for a few years, or people that you're close to that you've never that you don't have as many touch points with. But there's been no break in our connection. So when I was a student at Viewpoint, when I went on to upper school, and when I went on to college, Cathy was at my college graduation. She flew out to Washington, D.C. to see me graduate from
I did.
college, and a small group of people that made the trip for that. So that was very exciting. And also, I have a very close relationship with Cathy's daughters, and watched them go through school and then become sort of adults themselves, and in their travels and their professions and their love lives. And I got to see your oldest daughter, Kelly, be married. So I was at Kelly's wedding, and it's been a very special journey, as Cathy said, for us together, both as, she's a mentor, she's a friend. I try to always explain to my children, I said, it's like a godmother. It's like a fairy godmother when you see a Disney movie. That's what Mrs. Adelman is to me. And just, having the bond also with Neil, Cathy's husband, and her daughters. And even just recently, my daughter Arwen in 5th grade is doing a project on, that was assigned by her reading teacher. And the Newberry Book Project, one of the options was to make a movie trailer about your book. And one of the most celebrated movie trailer producer executives in the entire entertainment industry, hands down, is Cathy's daughter, Kelly, who is a Viewpoint student. And so I got to watch my daughter, the way many of your Viewpoint students do with Viewpoint alums, meeting with them for advice in their careers or internships or externships. I watched my 5th grade daughter sit down on Zoom and say, what makes a good movie trailer? And Kelly had amazing advice, from storytelling to pace to music. And so that was another touch point that I'm seeing Kelly both as Cathy's daughter, but Arwen is seeing her also as a Viewpoint alum that gets to sort of share her professional experience now and say, I remember when I used to do book reports. So that long-standing tradition of people staying connected after Viewpoint is definitely evident between our families, and then just immediately between our daughters, which is very special as well.
I remember a Christmas morning when Jackie called and said, can I come over and bake cookies with Kelly and Carly? Just those spontaneous things that would happen. And the girls just loved it. It was a special memory for all of us. And Kelly also just told me that she loved talking to Arwen on the phone. And she was so smart, and she got it. And it was a really nice connection. It made me feel really happy.
But that's pretty extraordinary that that's 3 generations of a Viewpoint connection, from, as teachers and administrators, you and my mom together, to Kelly and I both as your children as students, and now to my daughter, having that experience both with you and your daughter as a Viewpoint alum and a professional out in the world working, who was able to share her, love and enthusiasm and connection for her job and to Viewpoint with my child, who's a current student looking for advice on a project. Pretty extraordinary.
Absolutely.
It really is 3 generations of family connection, 46 years and counting.
Yes.
Very important. No retirement date announced yet.
No retirement day.
Can you imagine the uproar? You're going to have a walkout in the primary school. You better prepare. Thankfully it's not coming anytime soon, because those children are very bonded. When we recently were visiting for trustee visiting day, I walked by Cathy's office to give her a wave, and I saw these very sweet kindergarteners, about 5 or 6 of them, holding a giant poster board. And it was really sweet to see them navigating. They did better than my husband and I moving a sofa together. Who was walking forwards, who was walking backwards, who was going to open the door and let go of the poster. And they were all going as a teacher appreciation to Cathy. and just the spontaneous hugs and comments. It was so genuine. And it's just pretty extraordinary how you have, and I could see it there, and I see it in my daughter, I see it in my friends who grew up and went to Viewpoint, but then to see it in these current kindergarten students who all knew you, you knew them, and knew something about them. And there was a very personal connection between each and every child that day that walked into your office. You didn't even know they were coming. It was just very special. And that was the day we were announcing and speaking about the endowment fund. And I think I actually did take it on my phone as a video or some photos, but it was just like spontaneous, authentic, and these children are bonded to Cathy and she to them, and it's very special.
You had a viewpoint on most of that 46-year career, actually, much of it at least. If you had to sum it up, the impact that Cathy's had on your life, maybe on all students' lives, in a word or two, what would it be?
It's a really good question. And I would say it's, it would probably be, I think there's a lot of loyalty to how Cathy operates, loyalty as an alumni and a member of the community to what's right and what the traditions are here, what the expectations are here, loyalty to sort of staying with, every child is a different kind of learner. I was a complete handful. My daughter is a very spirited child. And I think there's a real loyalty to the students of I'm with you, I'm going to figure this out with you. I think there's an incredible loyalty to the teachers that when you hire them and you bring them in, no one is brought in and then left on their own without guidance and support and real encouragement, enthusiasm. And I saw the way that Cathy interacted and was so welcomed and beloved by the teachers in primary school. And I think when you think about, we've talked a lot about this, the ability to recruit and retain and develop extraordinary teachers, I really think sets Viewpoint School apart from any other private institution in the Los Angeles area. I don't think there's a single school that can show the staying power of really extraordinary teachers that are still not only here and loyal to the school, but that are constantly innovating the way that they teach. To give an example, my daughter's kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Schulhoff, there's a real loyalty that you have to feel that has been instilled in you by your department head in Cathy Adelman that then is mirrored back by the teachers to stay for, Mrs. Schulhoff's been here for over 2 decades. Pretty extraordinary. And when you walk in that classroom, there's a real level of authority and tradition, but yet complete innovation. She's, absolutely coming up with clever solutions for new learning styles and new techniques. And I really was blown away firsthand to see how so much has remained the same, and yet so much has been embraced in change. And I think Cathy's loyalty to the school to just stick with it, stick through with it through, changes and growth and just really be loyal to what Viewpoint is about and be very committed to how Viewpoint can change. And I think that's pretty extraordinary to see a division head 46 years on to be considered to be somebody who's an innovator, who can, when you say, how can I handle this? And she'll say, well, I just read something. Let me give you an article. And I remember going into your office when my daughter was in primary school and Cathy bringing out a Xerox copy of an article that she had just read and kept a few in her file for parents like me who are struggling with, how do we handle this thing? And just always staying on top of it. And I think that's being loyal to what Viewpoint's about. It is about going beyond. It isn't just about the tradition of, the alma mater or the school prayer. It's really about being loyal to saying we are those things and we are also so much more. And to have that with also the security that alumni and faculty and staff and students are given, that they're familiar faces on campus. I don't think that there are as many schools as there should be who an alumni 5, 10 years out comes back and says there's no familiar faces. And I think it's pretty special that you can have the growing education and the growing campus, but still excellent teachers. And I think that's Cathy's loyalty to sort of these teachers and these students of really sticking it out and saying, I'm going to keep making it great.
We've had a real emphasis on innovation in the last few years with our World Ready promise. And I've reflected that the primary school under Cathy's leadership has been one of the most innovative divisions of the school. And I'm really prompted by what you're saying to think about the connection between innovation and loyalty. I was thinking about loyalty.
That's very nice.
Who is with an employer for 46 years anymore, right? I mean, it's such a beautiful thing
Thank
to
you.
have that kind of loyalty and career. Cathy, what do you think?
Well, I appreciate those words, and I think those words are true, but from my perspective, I just feel so blessed to be here. I love the children. They're keeping me young. I love the fact that we're always looking for best practices for children. I have teachers who are motivated and excited about professional development, about learning things. You know, when they bring things to Vanessa and I, we're always eager to hear, okay, let's try it. Sometimes it's, we realize that, yeah, this is really working. This is where we need to go. And other times we think, it's okay, but we like what we're doing better. But we're always excited about moving things forward. And I think with our new campus that we're it's not new anymore, it's our 8th year, but bringing in the innovation space, and we have our math specialist who is really promoting flexible thinking, and we have math teams for children, extraordinary enrichment classes with people who are passionate about their subject areas. And you put all of that together, and the children they're learning, they're stimulated, they're excited about school. And we see that in the carpool in the morning when they get out and they go running to class or skipping to class. We have the best carpool in the whole school. And it's so exciting to see all of that. So from my perspective, I just feel so lucky to be part of it. And I have, outstanding partnerships with the people that I work with. And I see that we are always going forward. We don't want to ever say, this is the best we can be. And I thank you, Jackie, for saying that was even starting early on, because when we did start with the Carden method, and Jackie was part of that, it was a very prescribed curriculum. And as we went on in time, and different heads of school came in and gave us the opportunity to just explore and see what's best for these children. And I do think that if you come to Viewpoint and you're a faculty member or an administrator, if you truly believe in what we're doing and you see the results of what we're doing for children, and as they grow up and graduate and how successful they are, you want to stay. Where else would you go? It's just wonderful. And throughout these 46 years, the intention, not only to be better in terms of the curriculum, but the campus, and to just offer, students come to teachers and say, do you think we could do this? Do you think we could do that? Teachers then come to the curriculum committee meetings, and they propose things, and everything just seems to move forward, and not at the expense of anything, but really to the forward thinking and to the best. I keep using the word best practices, but that is the word. Those are the words. And whether the children are 5 years old or they're 16 years old, that's what we need to keep doing. And it's exciting and very, very gratifying.
I think that when you talk about what you're saying, and I found myself in describing loyalty, talking about innovation, which seems like something that's so paradoxical, is how could you be talking about, and because I'm not a rule follower, and you say one or two words, I'm going to take three. So I would say the best three words that for me would describe Cathy is loyal, committed, and innovative. And I think that's one of the things that you really see at Viewpoint. You have a campus and with traditions, you have a way of being that feels very specific to Viewpoint, and you have constantly innovating, as you said, for best practices. But I think what's something that's really special is being part of the charge to saying, no, a lot of schools are giving up foreign language. Not only are we not going to give it up, we're going to add more options. We're going to give you Mandarin in upper school. We're going to give you Latin in middle school. It's pretty extraordinary what I watch other independent schools giving things up to make it through the day, that Viewpoint's actually the school I see that's adding things on. And that push, that expectation, that availability starts in primary school. It starts in kindergarten, saying you're going to have half the year, and you're going to explore language, and you get to choose your language. That choice and that sort of commitment to what we've always been at Viewpoint and what we can be, foreign language and the innovation lab and the technology space, it all goes together. That just both things are being maintained simultaneously, and it's pretty extraordinary to have that happen. I'll also say, as a parent, how appreciative I am that so much of the curiosity in students is met with opportunity in the primary school. And I think that that's something that under 46 years of, consistent presence of Cathy on campus in the primary school and as a leader, to never lose sight of offering the parents right here on the campus the ability for a child to take those first steps into a sport they may become very passionate about, or an activity or a language. And I think that there's so much pressure these days to be able to provide those things for your children outside of school. And it's so extraordinary that in primary school, they're getting the kind of differentiated, departmentalized education with people who are leaders in their field, that you're getting a departmentalized education starting in primary school. And I think that's pretty extraordinary that can happen with somebody who's also loyal to making sure we don't give up the fir tree and your rabbit. To do those two things simultaneously is nearly impossible, and you've done it beautifully.
Thank you. And I just want to mention the importance of our character program as well. We developed that probably about 6 or 8 years into probably not. I taught for 10 years, so it was probably more like 14 years when I was an administrator. And we just realized how important it was for us to create a character program. And we have Stretch the giraffe, and the children voted on that name. So we stretch ourselves to be kind, we stretch ourselves to be responsible, and all of the others. But every month we're working on that. And our assistant heads go into the classrooms and they talk about it, and they have stories to read. And it really is an integral part of our curriculum that I am very proud of, as well as our responsive classroom. We have morning meetings every morning. And it's really important, I think, for children to feel a part of a family inside their classroom. And when you have those morning meetings and everyone is speaking about a certain topic, you start to get to know each other. And it really creates, I think, a bond with the children, as well as children get excited when others are happy. Children have empathy if someone is sad about something. And that piece of what we do here is something I'm really proud of as well, and feel like it's very important.
Cathy, you just exude gratitude and humility. And I think about what we're doing at this benefit in creating this endowment fund. Now, Viewpoint today administers a financial aid budget of over $6 million every single year, so that quite literally hundreds of students can come to the school with tuition assistance. I was a scholarship kid in my own education, so I know how vital that is. And yet, when it came time to think about creating a fund to honor your career and legacy, tell me a little bit about why an endowment and why financial aid?
Well, I'm honored to have an endowment. I was very surprised and humbled to have an endowment in my name. But for the financial aid, I have always wished that we had that in primary and lower school, because we have had children apply that we would meet at our play dates, and they were wonderful, and the parents were excited about coming. But when it came to paying the tuition and they were not able to do that, there wasn't any assistance being offered at this time. So it was one of the things that has been on my mind for years and years. And now I just am so excited about this opportunity. I truly believe in the foundational years of education. And this is going to change children's lives when they're able to come in at kindergarten and start their journey, and all of this foundation that we're building beginning in kindergarten. If you miss that foundation, you sort of miss it when you come into sixth grade. You are who you are, and I'm not saying other schools don't provide some of that, but I know that what we provide is outstanding, and I see the character that we develop and the confidence that we develop in children and the excitement about learning and to be innovative when you go into the innovation space, which to me was one of the things that really did change the culture of our school. There's all these materials in a room and there's a challenge, and you get started. You get to think about what your brain is thinking with that challenge. And so, as well as we differentiate the curriculum. So when children come with different backgrounds, everybody isn't waiting while someone's learning something, but the child that doesn't know yet, we have groups. We have, in kindergarten, we probably have 8 or 9 different reading groups as we start to teach the reading and start to build the phonics and the math capabilities. So, I just feel like for children to come in at the primary school level, I'm thrilled beyond words. And I get goosebumps every time I think about it. I just think if there's anything that I would love to do in my life and beyond my lifetime, I consider this a passion project. I think it is a project that's going to go on, and it's going to make a difference in children's lives. And for me, it's just the best, the absolute best.
I think it's such an extraordinary thing that when chosen how you wanted to be honored for your service and commitment and loyalty and most and above all contribution to the school, that you decided to pay it forward and made sure that there was more access to give more opportunity to share that. And when, Mark, you speak about being world ready and having Viewpoint School look and feel like the world we are preparing students for, I think that providing that opportunity at a young age so that families who are passionate but not necessarily able yet to pay the full tuition, that they can be included, and that those families will bring so much to all of the families at the school and
Absolutely.
create an environment that feels more balanced and more fair. And I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful, special thing that we've found a way to be passionate about the fundraising for this while we simultaneously are also able to have the resources to keep it excellent. And to be able to do both is pretty extraordinary.
It is. It absolutely is.
Jackie, what inspired you and Jeff to make the first gift and open this fund?
I think, first of all, I just want to thank Mark, thank you and your team. And when we ask, what can we do to be helpful, which is a phrase we always teach our children at home, that it was your team. When I said, what else can we do to be helpful? And they said, we're thinking about honoring Cathy in this way. And immediately I said, then what do you need to get it started? So it was just so wonderful and so perfect. And frankly, long awaited, because the commitment and your loyalty and your contribution to this school is so profound. It really is so profound to the fabric of what Viewpoint School is, that to be able to make sure that it was memorialized in such a way and extended in such a way to families, that made it more equal opportunity for access to this extraordinary education in the primary school, which Cathy has been so integral in creating, was very exciting for us. And we're so happy that we're part of a school that is able to recruit, retain, and develop someone like Cathy Adelman. And now she does it, a million times over. But that you're also thinking about, how can we share this education? How can we make sure that it gets into the hands of other families who really want it? And then the presence of those families further enriches the experience for everyone at the school. And it's just very special.
What did it mean to you to hear about Jackie and Jeff's support, and then the so many others? We've already had such great early success in response to this.
I know.
Cathy Adelman Endowment Fund for Financial Aid. What did it mean to you to hear about that?
It's fantastic. I get excited every time I get an update. I love you, Jackie, and your husband means a lot to me as well. Your family does, and for you to open the endowment was just amazing. And I had no idea. We had our school address when I first talked about it, and Jackie was actually filming somewhere, and she was listening, and she stopped what she was doing, and she drove right over here, so that on the night of us announcing what was coming, it was open. And so it was really nice for me to give her hugs and kisses and appreciate that. And I just feel like we're just moving forward. I have people coming to my office who are congratulating me for the endowment, but they're also just so excited about children that get to come, and they want to hug me, and I'm full of goosebumps again, all at the same time. People are excited, and as a result of that excitement, there's a lot of generosity happening. And I think that we've passed the mark already of where we wanted to be by the end of the benefit, and the benefit hasn't even started yet. And I just have such an appreciation for people wanting to give to someone who will be really, their life will change to be at this school. And our community is really reaching out very generously for this fund, and I cannot thank you ever enough for this beautiful gesture in my name, but for those children that will benefit.
Well, you know what it is in education, and Jackie, you grew up with an educator as mom, and in education, when you teach a child, you often have no idea what the impact is or will be, and you might hear about it years later, or you might never hear about it at all. And to think about the impact now that this endowment will have,
Yes.
in educating future generations of children literally forever. It's really kind of takes your breath away.
It's surreal.
And as
It
a
really
parent,
is.
as a parent, I'm so proud, and as an alum, as a parent and as an alum, I'm so proud to be part of a school that says this is something that we know we need, and that's what our benefit's about this year. It's all about this. It's all about celebrating the loyalty, the commitment, the innovation, the excellence of Cathy Adelman, and then not just celebrating it, but saying, and we want to share it. And I think it feels good as a parent, as an alum, as Viewpoint, to have go back to what you said about being like-minded, to have that like-mindedness of purpose, like-mindedness of our why as a Viewpoint school community, of all of us saying, yes, this is the perfect idea, this feels right. And for you to want that, and for everyone to immediately, both from the administration and the faculty and the staff, and now the parents and the alumni, to just jump in so generously and so enthusiastically shows that shared value,
Really
that shared
does.
commitment to the school. It's a really, it's a proud moment in time, I think. There's been a lot of special galas and fundraisers at Viewpoint. I think you and my mom did the favors together.
Yeah, we
If I'm not mistaken, this is the 40th anniversary gala.
I think it's the 41st.
It's the 40th, it's the 40th annual benefit.
And 40th
And it's our
annual
61st year as a
and
school.
61st year.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
40 years
right.
ago, you and my mother were stuffing favor bags for the benefit together as teachers together
Yes.
at Viewpoint School. And I was already a student here.
Yes.
And it's pretty extraordinary 40 years later to see the commitment and yet again the innovation, how it's evolved, that we took care of the building on the campus and so many other things, and to now start building endowments for, starting with this financial aid is just really very special. And it's very special for me 40 years later to be involved in a benefit that started with you and my mom
Yes.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
Were you pressed into helping stuff those favor
100%.
bags?
I remember it.
I could see that.
It took place at the Hotel Bel Air, which is down the street from where I live now and where my parents got married, which I think must have been the reason that it was there. And I think my mother was the head of development at the time. And it was pretty extraordinary that that they put it together and that it was happening, because it started to really show the growth of Viewpoint School, that beyond the tuition and the attendance and the donations, that there was a big enough community to have a gala.
Yeah.
And that has sustained regularly every single year, even on Zoom and COVID, for 40 years straight, is just extraordinary and very special.
Well, you look at that, you plant a seed and it grows into a tree.
That's true.
And in the same way that 40 years ago, you helped stuff the bags for that very first benefit.
We did a lot of things. We didn't have all these extra people there to help, so
and
we all
just
pitched
think about
in.
this year, we'll create this endowment fund, and who knows what, that will turn into 40 years from now.
It's amazing. I'm
Well,
so appreciative.
I'm very grateful, Cathy, for your loyalty and your
Thank you.
commitment and your innovation.
Thank you.
And Jackie, it could not be more special than to have you here with us as our very first guest in this special podcast.
I'm so honored, as honored as I am to be on your podcast, which is a huge honor. I'm just so deeply honored to sit here with you as a friend, as a parent, as an alumni of not just Viewpoint School, but of your classroom. I feel very grateful and very special. And I think about my life and how changed it must be from it having that start. So I'm very excited to see that made available for more students forever. So it's great.
Well, we
Thank
couldn't
you,
have
Jackie.
a better
Thank you.
first episode
I know.
than to have someone who was in your kindergarten and first grade
I know.
class.
I love you.
I love you. Thanks for sticking with it, even though I probably made you want to quit.
Never.
And,
Never.
She really is. She really is. She loves all types of students, even the real spirited ones. She really does.
we're sitting in the conference room. I'm looking out the window at our canyon and the beautiful trees, and I think I see a jacket in one of them.
I'm sure. By the way, I'm sure that some and the little red grosgrain tie.
Yes.
There's a couple of them planted deep underground somewhere here.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
To learn more about the Cathy Adelman Endowment Fund for financial aid, visit viewpoint.org/onpoint. On Point, the Adelman Effect is produced by Viewpoint School, an independent school in Calabasas, California, serving students in grades TK through 12. You also can find the On Point podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Viewpoint School channel on YouTube, and at viewpoint.org/onpoint.